Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Jabari Greer. Played 10 years in the NFL, 5 with the Bills, 5 with the Saints. Did he just flash a Super Bowl ring there? And we'll get into that. We have some people that already have some questions about that. But one of my favorite stories, really, undrafted free agent. He was projected to go 4th and 5th round, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but I love the redemption. Even though it was hard for me to see you go, I was so happy when you signed as a first tier free agent, and it had to feel like redemption to be courted and wanted the way maybe you thought it was going to be on draft day. But anyway, we talked a little bit earlier. I know you're calling from Nashville, Tennessee, so welcome. Thanks for joining us, Troy.
Well, Don, I really appreciate you having me, man. I'm thankful to be able to be here. And sometimes, as a former player, you forget all the stories that kind of like came up in the locker room, man. So I'm excited to get back into that mindset of like talking football.
Absolutely. So Jabari, we love to talk about people's football journeys and how they ended up, where you guys got to. So maybe you can take us back to growing up, playing football, your love of football, high school days, and when you realized that you might really have a shot to make it in the sport.
Oh wow! So that's a long story. I'll give you the clip notes. All right.
Okay.
So
we want to hear it.
I feel like I was born an athlete. I was a guy that had an older brother. I have an older brother and younger sister, and so me and my older brother, we love to be able to compete in every single thing, whether it's football, basketball, baseball. We found a way to compete. And with my younger sister, I did a lot of things that you would do with your younger sister. I don't know if y'all remember Star Search, but me and my sister had a Star Search routine, and we would have like sleepovers, and we would like play dolls and things like that. So I always consider myself a chameleon, being a middle child. But I remember the day that my brother signed up for football. He was 8 or 9 years old, and I remember my mom took me to the park with him to sign him up, and I realized like I want to do that too. So I asked my mom, I begged my mom to sign me up. And so at 6 years old, I signed up for tackle football, and I remember they placed me on they placed me on the D line, right? Ooh. 6 years old, the smallest kid on the field. They placed me as I was a D tackle. So that was my intro to football. I loved it. And we moved a lot in my family. We moved every single year. We moved places, even though we may have stayed in the same school district. We moved homes, and eventually we moved to different schools. So football was something that always gave me a built-in family. It gave me it gave me a built-in place to belong, because my family was my family. But when I came into a new school, new situation, new environment, it gave me this built-in team where I could come in, prove my worth, and have a built-in set of friends. And I think that was the one thing from middle school to high school, something that always stayed with me. We lived in Houston. We ended up moving to Tennessee when I was 13 years old, a very transitional year in my life. I went to 3 different middle schools in 7th grade, from Texas to Tennessee. And I remember like moving to Tennessee and being on the football team and realizing that it was a little different than Texas football, right? It was a little different than Texas football. And me and my brother, like, truly, we were kind of running circles around some of these guys, you know what I mean? And so as we got, for me, I believe it was probably one of the best things that could have happened. Had I been in Houston, I may have gotten lost in the fray. You have thousands and thousands of guys that are spectacular, that have great athletic ability. And I would like to think that I would, but who knows, So we moved to Tennessee, had a great opportunity to play there. And I remember the first weekend that I was there, it was in the fall. And I remember going to Walmart and seeing all these orange and white flags on the cars just passing by. And I'm like, what in the world? I mean, just thousands of them, right? In my little small hometown.
What year was that? About what year?
This was 1998.
Wow.
This was the year. Was the year that Tennessee won the national championships. And I'm like, what is that? What is that? what is that T right there? Somebody looked at me and was like, you don't know the University of Tennessee? And as soon as they told me that, I said, that is where I'm going. That's where I want to go. With that type of support, I want to be at that university. And now when I tell you, man, I was 5'6", 130 pounds, talking about that I wanted to go to University of Tennessee, nobody believed me. I remember when I was in my 7th grade class, we had these little block sections where we sit. And I remember the girls that were sitting there, Calandra Ellison, Teriyaka Martin, I forgot who else it was. But I remember talking about wanting to go to the University of Tennessee. And I remember one of those girls looked at me and told me that they don't let dumb people in University of Tennessee. But you know what? So look, listen. Years later, that same girl asked me to speak at her school. So, justice.
There you go.
Love it.
Jabari, you're like the guy who remembers every single player drafted ahead of him.
Listen, I did not forget that, but through God's grace, right? Through God's grace. So I remember my brother went to the University of Tennessee's football camp as a senior. He did really well, and I remember that I just wanted to wait my turn. He got an opportunity to be seen in front of Coach Former and all those guys, but just didn't have the grades. But I remember him coming back and telling me everything that he had experienced. My brother was highly recruited. I remember going to the mailbox with him in his senior year and wondering who was going to be. Like, who is going to be? Is it going to be Michigan? Is it going to be Nebraska? Is it going to be Tennessee? And unfortunately, he wasn't able to have the grades that allowed him to get to a D1 school. But I remember that planted a seed in me, knowing that I had an opportunity, that if I wanted to go to the next level, what I needed to do, how to avoid some of those pitfalls and the things that I needed to do. And I remember when I was a junior that summer, I knew that it was my opportunity that if I went to the University of Tennessee, that was going to be the University of Tennessee's football summer camp, If I went there, I knew that was going to be my opportunity to get in front of the team and to earn my scholarship, to really claim the things that I had said that I had always wanted for these years, ever since 7th grade. It was 7 years. It was like 5 to 6 years.
So were you running track at that point in high school? I know you were track star at Tennessee, but so I imagine you were. That had to be probably what you consider was going to be your bread and butter. It was going to be your speed.
Well, yes, I was running track throughout my, in middle school and high school, and that really gave me the confidence and the individuality to know that I could really do it. I was a very shy child, and I was always my older brother's younger brother. I was always D's younger brother because we both played football, and my brother stood out. He was a star quarterback on our team. And so it wasn't until I made my own mark in the hurdles and I started winning, I started gaining this confidence in track and field, that I knew that I could become my own man. But rewind to that summer, my junior year in high school, I knew that if I did not go to that camp and earn a scholarship, that I would not have an opportunity to go to university. My parents did not have the money to send me to a school that was going to cost $15,000, $16,000, $20,000 per year to go.
A lot of pressure you put on yourself.
So what I did, my father worked from 7 at night to 7 in the morning. He worked the late shift. My mother worked from 10 at night to 7 in the morning. So I'm a junior in high school, and after 10 o'clock, I'm at the house by myself with me and my younger sister, right? And so I remember when my dad would get dressed and he would leave at 7 o'clock. I would put on my clothes. I would put on my workout clothes. And I lived next door to this church. This church had this huge parking lot. And I would go out in that parking lot from 7 to 10 o'clock and run routes. Every single route was for a scholarship. Every single cut, every single run, every time I did something, it was for a scholarship, because I knew that I had one opportunity to make it at this University of Tennessee camp. And guess what I did? I tore them up, boys. I tore them up at that camp. I tore them up. So at Tennessee, they had all the guys from all over the place, right? Had guys from California, Florida, and all these places. And me from little small town Jackson, Tennessee. I went out there and gave them every single thing that they wanted. I remember they had me on offense. I was taking them on routes. I was scoring touchdowns. And then they put me on defense, and I did well. I did well. So I remember being the second day. This was when camps were 2 days. Well, they were like 3-day camps, right? So I remember the second day I was there after we had finished everything, all the workouts and everything. Going to my room after eating lunch, going to my room, and then somebody knocking on my door and telling me that Coach Fulmer wants to talk to me.
Oh, all right, nice.
This is it. So I go up there. And I walk into his office. His office is like 3 rooms, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful office. This is back in 2000, but it was beautiful. And I remember sitting down and him telling me that, they have been watching me and they wanted to extend an offer to the University of Tennessee. And I remember it was that moment that the culmination of every single thing that I had worked for kind of like proved. It showed itself and it was well worth it. But the biggest thing is when I went back to my dorm, calling my mom and said, "Guess what, Mama? I got it. It's happening." That was the moment right there. Calling my mama, letting her know that all this dream that she had always put into me, because since I was a kid, since I was 6 years old, I had told my parents that I wanted to play professional football, that I was going to be a professional football player. My mom used to always tell me as a 6-year-old child, just get a scholarship. Just get a scholarship. And I was able to call my mom as an 18-year-old young man and tell her, "Mom, I got that scholarship."
That's awesome. Was your second call to that girl that you were grade school with?
Should have been. That's funny. Two questions off that, Jabari. Who cried more, you or your mom, on that call?
Oh, my mom. Oh, it was great. My mom does this thing, man, where she like, "Oh, baby, oh." And I love it. I love it. And I was able to call my mom when I made the team when I made the Buffalo Bills. I finally made the final roster. And I remember being in the hotel. I got to make that second call. "Mama, I'm a professional athlete." And like, "Oh, baby."
Awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. So, I'm doing a show now with Marlon Kerner, former Bills DB, called What Happened on Saturday, where we talk college football. And Marlon is sharing his passion for his Ohio State Buckeyes, and we're interviewing people, etc. And he talks about what it's like playing in the Horseshoe. I want to know what it's like playing at Neyland Stadium with 110,000 people. I want to know what it's like to hear Rocky Top 15, 20 times a day. Just take people into like SEC football and what it was like playing like in a Tennessee, Florida game or whatever at home in that unbelievable atmosphere.
Yeah, and some highlights too. It's your most memorable game or two.
Oh, great. Right? Okay, so I would say let's start wide first, a wide view. Okay, so imagine, I'm not sure where you're from, what city you're from.
Buffalo. We're both.
You're from Buffalo. Okay, yep. So Buffalo's a fairly big city. I was from Jackson, Tennessee. Jackson, Tennessee has a population of 40,000 people. At that time, probably a little bit, that may have been a bit generous. So for me to play in front of 105,000 people, it really, it was overwhelming understanding that this was more than two times the size of every single person in my hometown, right? It was kind of surreal. I remember and playing in Neyland was incredible. We'll get to that. But I remember one of the most humbling and affirming times at in my career at Tennessee. I remember I was a freshman, right? So I was a freshman. They brought the freshman class up. We got there early so we could start early in the summer so we could start off-season workouts. And so this is 2 years removed from the national championship. So those guys were still on the team. Dante Stallworth, Cedric Wilson, Andre Lott, Travis Henry, Big John Henderson. So these are guys that I'm watching on television that are like superstars to me. And now I'm walking in freshman orientation, freshman camp, freshman practice, and I see these guys. And it's just like, it's surreal. We go to workouts. We do 7-on-7. And Cedric Wilson, the team's starting receiver, guy who had caught a touchdown at the national championship, was their number one receiver from Memphis Melrose. I remember this. He took me under his wing because Memphis and Jackson is fairly close, 45 minutes. And so I was considered crib, which is like somebody from your hometown. Says that, "All right, crib, Come, it's me and you. Come step up. So Said calls me out. Their number one receiver off a national championship, a guy that was basically a superstar to me, calls me out and tells me to line up on him and 7-on-7. And I line up on Said, and guess what, guys? Lock him down. Lock them down. And it was at that moment that I realized, like, oh, like this isn't TV. This is real life, and I can do this.
Yeah.
And I think for a player, that is the biggest aha moment when you go from one level to the next. And it happened like that when I was at Buffalo as well, right? Guarding Eric Mose, guarding these guys, and realizing, like, oh, like I actually belong here. Like, I can do this. This isn't too big for me. Playing in Leland, I think one of the most surreal moments for me is understanding that you see things from one area. You see things from one angle. I always saw things from the television, Saturday morning, watching the Florida-Tennessee game, but then being there and seeing the decals on the helmet, you realize, like, oh, I'm actually here. You see the blue and the orange stripes. You see the orange and white, the Tennessee. You see the Tennessee emblem, and you put that helmet on. You're like, oh, I'm actually here. And I think for me, that was the biggest aha. That was the biggest moment that I remember now. It's like realizing that all the work that I had done it wasn't necessarily just get in front of that huge crowd, but it was to put on that helmet, to wear that decal so that some other young man can sit in his living room or sit in his bed and wonder what it's like to be out there. I'm living it. And I was that guy before.
Man, you were running those routes back at the church at night when your dad went to work, and thinking about the way it paid off. You mentioned Florida here a couple times. My dad went there. He was an alum. I'm sorry, but he was there when Spurrier was a player. But is that playing them either home or away? Was that kind of the biggest rival? Is it the biggest rivalry for you? Biggest?
Well,
games?
yeah. I mean, so there was a lot of rivalries.
Sure.
So we had Florida. We had the 3rd October and the third Saturday in October, which is the Alabama game. And we, fortunately, I came in during a time where we actually, we were whooping up on Alabama. But Georgia was a team that we could not beat. Georgia was kicking. I guess that's how it is now, right? Yeah, Georgia was kicking our tail. But Florida, it was something about going down there to the swamp that really brought, I guess, the best out of all of us. When we played Florida, it was something about that team, Florida and Tennessee, during the year that I was there, that really meant something extra special, because Florida, us in Florida were those teams that were really vying for national supremacy, right? And so I remember 2001, after our game actually got postponed because of September 11th, and so we played Florida later on that year. And it was my first year starting as a sophomore. And I remember some guys like Rashae Caldwell, Jabari Gaffney. These were guys who were their star players. Rex Grossman was at quarterback. And I remember that, man, they ran this route. And as a sophomore, I broke in front of it. And that ball was coming. I caught it and dropped it. It's like, oh my goodness. I dropped the interception in Florida game. The next series, I dropped another interception. I'm like, what is going on? Finally, in the 4th quarter, I got an interception from Rex Grossman. I had one interception, but I could have had 3 picks in the Florida game. That was a guaranteed first round, fellas. That would have been guaranteed.
Man.
And obviously, that still bothers me to this day.
Right. So you're at Tennessee. You start as a sophomore. You guys are good. When does the NFL become realistic for you? And then I know, Don talked about your draft day, and kind of, can you take people through the process? Once you graduated and once you decided to go to the NFL, you're going to go to the NFL, what it looked like and how maybe it didn't work out the way you thought.
Well, when you go to a school like Tennessee, it's always realistic to you, playing in the NFL, because the truth is you're around a lot of guys who are there. A lot of guys come back who have played in the league. You see John Henderson, Albert Haynesworth. You see guys, Dante Stallworth, Cedric Wilson. These guys are playing in the league right now, and they're coming back and you see them driving in nice cars, and like these are guys who had like beat up Chevy Malibus before they left. They're coming back with Lamborghinis, right? So it's just like, oh, sometimes you never know something's possible until you can actually see it. But like for me, I had a hope, but I always knew that I wanted to be a professional athlete. So the idea of like having the ability of wondering if I could actually do it was something that never really happened, never really came across to me. It was just something that I knew that was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I just knew eventually it was going to happen. But then during draft day, it didn't happen. And I was one of those, it was one of those things where I kind of realized like after the combine, when I weighed in at like 164 and I did 225 like 4 times, I'm like, I'm probably not going to get drafted. It was one of those things where I had a very, very bad combine. And so I still hoped against hope that something was going to happen. Unfortunately, it didn't. But I don't think that ever like deterred the idea of me actually making a team. So after, as you know, a free agent, as in free agency, after you don't hear your name called, you still have like options. And so my agent calls me and he says, hey, listen, St. Louis wants to bring you in. San Francisco wants to bring you in. And Buffalo wants to bring you in as well. And he says, Rashad Baker was my college roommate, college best friend, but also he was our free safety from Tennessee. And so I call him Bake, me and Bake, we played together for 3 years, and this was my brother, right? And so my agent says, Baker just signed with the Buffalo Bills, and without even thinking, I'm like, well, let's keep the party going now. I'm like, Bake's going to Buffalo. I'm gonna go to Buffalo too. And
yeah. So Jabari, let me tell you, I was in the room that night. My job as director of football administration, I helped facilitate. I would go in the draft room at the beginning of the 7th round, and someone would stand up between our picks and say, "Hey, when the undrafted free agent signings happen, it's 2 hours. It's like being in Wall Street.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna have a paper. You're gonna talk to either the player or the agent. Here's the parameters. They're going to get the basic 3 or 4 year rookie deal, but the variable is the signing bonus, where it could be, anywhere from 2,000 to 5, 10, 20. Yes. And I remember all those years when the team was able to land Rashad and you at the same time. There was real excitement in the room that they had scored players that they had considered to be, better than where you were selected. Yeah. And then, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I remember when you made the team, and I love the story about your mom. But so tell us what happened there. But I know the team was real excited to have you. There, yeah.
That's really interesting that you said that. I never knew how that process worked behind the scenes. I wish I would have picked me, but it was great to be able to go there anyway. So after that, I realized that me and Rashad are going to Buffalo. I called my uncle and he asked me, a lot of guys want to know what's going on. A lot of people in your family. And I said, I'm going to Buffalo. And he stops for a second. And he says, ooh, it's going to be cold up there, buddy. That's the first. I was like, oh, wow. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about that. And I realized, okay, well, let's go. So they bring us in. And I don't know if y'all know this, but they fly everybody in at the same time. So we're on this huge 14-passenger bus. And I'm seeing 14, 15 DBs all driving to the facility. Now I'm looking around and, I'm not the brightest guy, but I can count. And I realized that, listen, somebody's not going to make it.
Somebody's
not going to make it, but it's not going to be me. That's one thing that I there was something that I just felt. I'm like, I don't know who is, somebody's not going to make it, but it's not, I'm going to be the one that's going to make it. And so we get there and we start playing, we start practicing. And I had that built-in comfort system with Rashad. And so, me and Rashad, we were running 13, 14. but we were playing together. And so we could be able to, I knew how Rashad played, Rashad knew how I played, and we could, we had that comfort level. So, I felt more confident about my ability knowing that I had my brother back there. And I'm sure that he did the same thing.
That's so interesting. Do you feel like that tandemness and chemistry actually helped you and Rashad make the roster as kind of like a package deal?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, me and him, man. I think that the way that we challenge each other, the way that we because there is a feeling of isolation in moments like that. When you have guys that are integral to the team and that have been in the league 6, 7, 8, 9 years, you come to a team with the KO Spikes and Sam Adams and London Fletcher. It's like, dude, I can't fit in with these guys. I need to who am I? I need somebody that I can relate to. And that's what Rashad did to me. And so we were able to relate. We were able to build. And the truth is, it's like, dude, it's us against everybody. Like, I'm not by myself. And so I think, like, I through the grace of God, I feel like it was the best situation for me, not just because of Bake, but I don't know if y'all remember this, but we had the defensive coordinator, Jerry Gray. Jerry Gray was our defensive coordinator. Jerry Gray was a former corner that played for the Houston Oilers, a team that I loved. I grew up watching, being that I was in Texas. And so Jerry Gray was tough on me. But had I not went to a team with a defensive coordinator that knew what corner play looked like, knew what good corner play looked like, I might have not made that squad. Jerry knew what a good corner looked like, and he would coach me up. He called me thin butt. Y'all, nobody knows that. Only guys in the locker room know that. And
you heard it here first.
I'm an undrafted free agent. Let me tell you what Jerry did to me. He cut out those Gatorade, those green Gatorade cups. Okay. Mm-hmm. And every time that I was doing the same thing that college corners do, as soon as I break for the route, I would look back for the ball. And these professional quarterbacks, they putting the ball on the money. Then you can't look back for the ball. And so what he did was, as an undrafted free agent, he was like, hey, come here. He cut off these doggone Gatorade cups and put them on the side of my head like horse blinders.
Funny.
Horse blinders. He did that. So some people would consider that being embarrassing, but that is coaching. He coached me up because he saw something in me that another coach who may have been like an old defensive lineman or an old linebacker may not have seen. And I thank God for that. Yeah. Every time I see Jay, I'm like, oh man, come here, give me some love.
That's pretty amazing. That
Steve Jackson was there too.
Yeah,
right? He was a corner that played with Jerry. Steve Jackson.
Oh no, he was. I think he was there before. We actually had Steve Zabo. Which is
another story. There was a lot of too many.
Pretty amazing that the DC is is coaching you up as an undrafted guy. Like clearly that he saw something in you. So you make the team. Talk to me about playing at Ralph Wilson Stadium at the time, Highmark Stadium now. How similar is it to a college atmosphere? People always talk about Buffalo as one of the closest cities in America to being like a college town. Yeah. Like talk to me about playing at home.
I think that. Well, first, I think that Buffalo was the perfect place for me. Being that we had an older roster of well-established players, and like we were right on the precipice of like playoffs, right? We had a team that was right there. A lot of older guys, London Fletcher. We brought in Troy Benson that year. We had Isaiah Reese, Pearson Prelo, Nate Clements. We had a young Terrence McGee. You know what I mean? Oh man, Sam Adams, Pat Williams, Aaron Schobel. We had a lot of guys on defense that knew how to play the right way. Had I been in a place like Houston or LA or like Miami, I don't think that I would have understood what being a professional actually entailed. And so because I did not have the distractions of a place like Miami, a place like Houston, a place like New York, I was able to come alongside those older guys like Troy Benson, Nate Clements, Pearson Prelo, and say like, what is it that you do that has allowed you to be a 10-year vet, allows you to be a 5-year, 8-year vet. And I just soaked it up. And so playing with those guys in that stadium before it got cold. So this was two different circumstances, right? Two different situations. Before it got cold, right in early September, it was something that was so powerful, right? It's so powerful because you get the energy of the crowd. There's only literally one way in and one way out, of that stadium. It's just that one road that you get in, and it was, just having the environment, along with the tailgating and also the backdrop of, because Orchard Park at that time, I'm not sure if they've like renovated around there, but
No.
around that, it was like a very old looking, you know what I'm saying?
It looks exactly like you remember it.
It's like going to Foxborough,
very
kind
old
of
looking brown buildings, and it was just like it's one of those places where you feel the history. You feel the history, and so you come up in there, you can feel the history. You feel families that have probably been at the same tailgating spot for 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? And like be a part of the organization. You saw old jerseys, right? You saw old jerseys, old hats. A guy with an old.
I got my Bruce Smith jersey. This is from my father-in-law. He wore this. Yep.
So you're a part of history. You understand that you're a part of history. But when it got cold, then it was another experience, because there's one thing to be a player in those blistering elements, because I'm on the sideline. I got heated seats, my helmet's heated, got huge coats, but then to look up and see people in 12-degree weather, 10-degree weather with shirts off, I'm like, y'all are, I would say dedicated, but it's like it's a different level of love and intensity and faithfulness for their team. And so I realized that they probably love the game a little bit more than I did, to be out there at times. So
you're stopping short of saying crazy. It's what you want to say, but so also 2006, the October storm that happened. I remember I wrote a book about it. I got to send it to you, but we weren't supposed to get snow that early in 2006. But I remember you coming to the airport for the road game to go to Detroit. Were one of the last ones, because you took a route that had a tree and you had to get around it. And we were calling you. We normally didn't do this. Like when we say a door shut at 1:30, they should shut at 1:30. But that day we made an exception. And I remember you came in probably only 15 minutes after 1:30. And of course you were running, putting your tie on, getting out of the car. And what do you remember about that?
Man, I remember. So I remember the very first car that I bought with my own money. I bought a BMW 745, and I thought that I was doing it, right? I lived next door to our defensive tackle, Sape, Lavale Sape.
From Hawaii, right?
From Hawaii. He went to Utah, and from Hawaii. And so I remember I bought the car and I brought Sape out. I was like, man, look at this. It's a nice little car. It was black. I didn't put rims on anything, but it was incredible. The next day it had snowed like 3 feet. I knocked on Sape's door like, hey, Sape, can I get a ride? Can I get a ride to work? He's like, man, what happened to your car you just bought? I was like, man, I can't get this thing out my driveway. So I realized at that time that first, like the conditions in Buffalo I never knew what lake effect snow was, and it goes from 0 to 100 very, very fast. Yeah. Second, man, the ability for some people to be able to drive in that stuff is incredible. I drove slow, I drove steady, and sometimes I was late. And so I remember Chuck Lester taught me a valuable lesson. I got late. I was late one time, and Chuck, Chuck was one of those guys that, if you gave Chuck some power, he was going to wield that. You
really do know Chuck Lester.
Yes, sir.
Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
You give Chuck some power, he was going to wield that power with an iron fist.
That's hilarious.
Chuck was the one that was checking us in. Chuck was the one that you had to check in. And so I had to be, I was like 15 minutes late. And Chuck was like, listen, if you're ever late, call me and let me know, and I'll take care of you. And I remember ever since then, if I ever knew I was gonna be late, I'm like, man, let me go, let me go show Chuck his respect.
There you go.
Oh,
We do know him. We all know
yeah,
him.
we all know him and like him, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I know you're a modest guy. You somehow pull off confidence without being cocky. That's an amazing combination. Not many people could do that. But we had Lee Evans on the program, and he was also a track star at Wisconsin. So you're lining up against him in practice. Who wins a 100-yard dash between the two of you?
Oh, wow. I was a hurdler. So
Okay.
I think Lee probably would have won the 100.
Would have been close.
Yeah, but you put some hurdles in front of us, and that's a different race.
All right.
That's a different race for us mere mortals. I can't even clear a hurdle. The people who run the hurdles that's confounding to me. So Jabari, you have a 4 or 5 year career here. Everything's going well. You hit free agency. What made you decide on New Orleans? And then one of my best friends in the world is a huge Saints fan, and I have a 3-question list that I must ask you about your time with the Saints, or he will defriend me.
Oh yeah. So this is one of my life's stories. This is one of the ways in which God showed up and like opened doors for me. I visited a few teams. I visited the Detroit Lions, the Cleveland Browns, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And each team that I visited, I would call my wife and let her know that that's a team that I was choosing. And she would say, well, wait a minute. Just hear all your choices and then make a decision at the very end. I go to Tampa Bay last, and I'm thinking that I'm going to be a Buck. But little did I know there was some political movement, little political movement there in that organization, and I was unable to walk away with the deal that I wanted. And so I'm deflated. These are my only options. And I go back to the hotel, and my agent calls me and tells me that New Orleans wants to fly me in the next day. Now, my agent is from New Orleans. So I'm thinking that, somebody's doing him a favor of bringing me in. I'm like, okay. So obviously you got some ties with the organization, so they're going to throw you a bone. They bring me in, put me in a nice hotel. Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton come to breakfast in the morning, and they give me the spiel that they give every other player. Well, not every other player that doesn't come from Buffalo. They told me, like, first of all, you're not going to be playing in the snow. We play in the dorm. We play in the dome. And that was like, I was like, my ears are perking up. Like, oh, really? A dome? Okay, all right. And he said, we got a quarterback. Just to let you know, we have a quarterback. And Drew Brees was one of those guys that was a real selling point at that time. And I'm sure probably still is to this day if he decided to come back and play. But I remember I took a tour of the facility, and I met some of the guys that I played with. I met Tracy Porter. I met
Pearson Prelo, right?
Oh yeah, so he was there eventually.
Oh, okay.
But they hadn't signed him yet. Okay. But I remember taking a tour, and I had left the building, left the parking lot. I was going around to eat lunch, and I remember this distinctive smell. If you've ever played football, this little league football, it's the smell of that mouthpiece that you would have before you poured. It's a very distinctive smell. And so I'm walking, and you know how smells like bring up memories, right? And I'm walking across the parking lot, and I smell my little league mouthpiece. And as clear as we're talking right here, I hear the voice say, if you come here, you'll be able to play like you're a kid again. Just as audible as I can explain it. And I realized at that time that I needed to heed that call. If you come here, you'll be able to play like you're a kid again.
Nice.
And at that moment, I was like, all right, okay. All right. And so they came back, we ran the numbers, they gave me the things that I was asking for. And I signed with them. And that was 2009. And so that was the year that we won the Super Bowl.
Were you sad to leave Buffalo, or was it time?
So a few things. I Buffalo, when it came time to talk business, right? Talk business. It was not, they were unwilling to match or to give me the things that I requested. But not only that, a year before in contract negotiation, there were some things that I felt were kind of it was just it was the business aspect of it. It wasn't anything about football because I love my teammates. I love the organization and I love the fan base. But in regards to just the business aspect of it, paying me what I felt like I was worth, what I could, what I could contribute, there wasn't a conscious effort in making sure that I was locking up to be one of their core guys. And so that's just the way it is. You build an organization, you need to have your core guys. You pay your core guys. You get your core guys. And so, unfortunately, we couldn't make it work. But other things happened for me. So going to New Orleans, you got 3 questions for me, man.
Yeah. So when I told my buddy that you were coming on, he was real excited. He said you need to tell him about the pick 6 against Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That was it was Monday Night Football.
Yes.
Right? That was Monday Night Football. And it was actually my mother's, I think it was my it was either I think it was my mother's 50th birthday. It was somebody's birthday. Well, somebody's birthday. And we were playing a half field corner where I was playing actually half field. I was taking the safety's place, but the receiver ran a slant. So playing half field and cutting on a slant, that's almost impossible, So Roddy White ran a slant. I saw it. I saw no other threats. I broke down, and then Matt Ryan just held it just a little bit longer to allow me to get down there. He threw it. I caught it, took it to the house, and there's something about the crowd volume at that dome that at moments like that it goes crazy, So Monday Night Football, high stakes game, playing a rivalry, getting an interception. I think that was a moment for me that was that kind of solidified the fact that I was playing like I was a kid again.
Do you watch yourself on the Jumbotron as you're going to the end zone?
No. So this is what I want to tell y'all. So
Lee Evans said he did.
This is one of the one thing that's surreal about professional football is that there are moments within the play that you experience nothing but the sound of your breath. Okay. And so as the team, as the offense and the defense are getting lined up, you hear, especially on defense, if you're at home, you hear thousands and thousands of people, and everything's going crazy. You're looking at the linemen, you're looking at motions, you're looking at sidemen, you're looking at your guys, you're getting everything. The ball snaps, and you hear nothing but the sound of your voice. You make a play, boom, you get down, everything opens up. It's an amazing moment. It is an amazing moment. It's such a contrast from one moment to the next, and it's amazing how your body or your I guess your awareness can single in to a single point when there's so many outside distractions.
It's like compartmentalizing. Yeah.
And so as I was running in, only thing I could hear, and then as soon as I scored that touchdown,
Okay. Beautiful. That's amazing. That's a great description of something that guys like Don and I will never know. Second question: where were you on the Tracy Porter pick 6 in the end zone, and what was it? That same thing for you, or because it wasn't you, were you like, holy shit, we're going to win the Super Bowl?
Okay, so two things. Because he got an interception to basically save us for the NFC Championship.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't know, you probably don't remember that, but we were going on like a 14, 15, 16 play drive. And I have never in my career been that tired. And so when Tracy got that interception, I just like pointed up and I was like, that's all I got, guys. That's all I have. I have nothing else. When Tracy got the interception in the Super Bowl, I believe the receiver ran me on a go route. And I didn't hear anything but yelling. I look and I see Tracy 30 yards down the field. But obviously celebrated with him. I was so happy. It was at that moment I'm like, okay, we won the Super Bowl. This is our game. But I remember earlier in that week, being in the Super Bowl, you're not around you're in a hotel, you're doing all your pregame things in a hotel, right? You're in a sterile situation, sterile environment where everything is kind of like put together so that you can focus, but you really can't focus that much. But I remember time after time going in there and seeing Tracy, watching film, watching that same route. That same route. It was an indie route they did. They come up and then go in. It was the same route they were watching. And I know as a corner, you have 2 or 3 routes that you know as soon as you see the alignment that that's going to be my play. And so I look at the success that Tracy had. Everybody saw that one play, but I saw him Monday and Tuesday in the room watching film, getting the emotional and the mental advantage so that when that one play comes, that he can make it. And so people didn't understand how much work Tracy put in before he actually jumped that route. Because if you look at him jump that route, he knew it. He knew exactly what was happening.
You could tell. I've watched that play many times. He knew it was coming. And to outthink Peyton Manning.
I was just going to say.
Outthink Peyton Manning and outstudy Peyton Manning.
Outprepare him, outstudy him. Was there? We got to get to Steve's third question, but as if the Super Bowl isn't already the biggest stage in the world, was there even something more to playing against the guy who at Tennessee was the, Peyton Manning, who was the man? Like,
probably.
Wow.
I mean, I dropped the interception earlier that series. So I'm like, man, I almost had, like, sometimes if you get an interception for certain guys, it means more, right? To get an interception from Brett Favre, to get an interception from I intercepted Aaron Rodgers one time when he was still like the backup quarterback. No, I think it was his first year starting at Green Bay. And we played him like in the preseason, intercepting him. I was like, oh, okay, I'm that dude. And so like to intercept Peyton Manning is just one of those times in which you just it's a little more special. It's a little more special.
Sure.
Third question: wings or gumbo?
Oh, great. So I guess it depends. I'm a Duff guy. I'm a Duff's guy, charbroiled. So I love the Duff's charbroiled wings. But man, you get a good gumbo, man. That's hard to. I love them both, man. I'm diverse. I
wonder putting them together.
Like
right.
Buffalo.
I don't know, man.
So that leads us to our last segment here with
one more quick question. Did you personally know about the onside kick, that it was going to happen, and what?
Oh yeah. So he told us in halftime that he was going to do it. He said, "Defense, be ready."
What do you do? Like you go out and no eye contact. You don't want to give anything away. Like, the anticipation must have been incredible.
You know what? I think I could see how that could be a mindset. I could see how that could be a question. But it's funny how when you know somebody, it just makes sense. Knowing Coach Payton, I was like, oh, of course he'll call an onside kick in the Super Bowl. Yeah, like, okay, well, that's on brand. That is on brand.
It's one of the greatest calls in football history. Flip that game around. So before we let you go here, Jabari, we do something called the 2-minute warning. We're going to ask you 10 rapid fire questions in 2 minutes or less, and just have people see like a different side of you. So Don, you can go ahead.
Okay, this needs to be brought up. Jabari is a football analyst, a television football analyst. So this first question, you're probably in the studio. You also do with the SEC network. So, but that being said, your most interesting place to watch a Bills game or a Saints game or a Tennessee game these days?
Oh, my living room. Oh my goodness. At the house.
It's amazing how many former players love to live to watch it in the living room. They've lived it, so where else is it going to be any better than their own living room?
Right.
Three people, Jabari, dead or alive, you'd want to have dinner with.
Oh wow, that's a great question. So I, Martin Luther King, obviously. Okay. Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes, Martin Luther King, and Jesus Christ.
Okay, nice. You're entering an arena. You're a big deal. You're the focus. Dry Ice. What's your entrance song?
Oh, oh wow! My entrance song would be man, it'd probably be some jazz. I'd be so crazy walking into some jazz. Yeah, Christian Scott. Christian Scott. No. We'll do DMX. We'll do DMX.
That's a little bit of a difference there.
I know, right? So we'll do either DMX or Eminem. Like that one. You got one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh, it was the Roots concert. I took my wife there, and we that was our first date. The Roots concert.
Wow.
There you go. I think you've already answered this. You said Duff's was your favorite restaurant when you were here in Buffalo. Is that?
No, actually, it was Nectar,
okay,
man. So Nectar was on Chippewa. It was, man, Nectar. It was this one spot called Nectar that they used to have these lamps. Oh, the Chop House. Well, you can't go wrong with the Chop House.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Love the Chop House.
There you go. Good.
Favorite cartoon as a kid?
Oh, great. Okay, it wasn't a cartoon, but my favorite show was Sesame Street.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, I watched it a little longer than my expiration. Yeah.
All right. So the most annoying fan base of another NFL team.
Oh wow. Okay. I think the easy answer would be the Cowboys fan base. That's the easy answer. But I think that it was something about Seattle that it was just like they were super loud and they were so loyal. But it's just like, come on, man, y'all gonna go to your tech jobs and like y'all not really in. Y'all not in it for real.
You know, it's funny you say that because we played there one of my last years with the Bills. It was 2016. It was a Monday night. And I walked out to the field early. It was about an hour and a half before the game. And I was wearing a coat and I had like this checkered shirt. And this guy was riding me about my shirt. He's like, "Nice shirt, you loser!" And he wouldn't let it go. And I'm like, "Dude, you're wasting your venom. I'm nobody here. Like the players will come out, save it for them."
Wow. Were you there? You were on the field for Beastquake, right?
Yeah, I was. I definitely was.
Is that maybe that's why, right?
And I just I melted off of Marshawn. Like I was hot.
Oh,
maybe
right.
You know what? I think we got to the bottom of that answer, Jabari. It might be because of that play,
well done,
right?
Well done.
Hey, the funny thing is, my kids still make fun of me to this day about that. Yeah, to this day, they were like, "Oh, you couldn't tackle Marshawn, could you?"
Yeah. Sorry to bring that up. So can you drive a stick shift?
I cannot. No, I cannot.
No worries. And fine, two more.
Okay.
You do number 10. Your three top favorite sports movies of all time.
Oh, okay. So the program. The Sandlot. The program, The Sandlot, and the greatest game ever played.
Nice. All right, now I have high expectations for this one. Jabari, we've been on kind of a losing streak of guys who have been able to answer this question, but I feel like you're going to break the streak for us.
Okay.
Can you sing us 5 seconds of your college alma mater, Old Rocky Top?
Oh yeah. Come on, just the theme or the whole song?
We asked for 5 seconds of a player's college theme song, and most guys have not been cooperating lately, but you take it away however you want.
I'm just going to sing the Rocky Top. Here we go. Okay, no. Rocky. Let's go Rocky Top. Rocky Top, you'll always be home sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top.
Woo!
Yeah, come on, guys. You got to go Rocky Top.
That was the best ever.
Yes, that was, Jabari, you win the award.
Best.
How many times a game, realistically, would they play that at home?
Whenever we score. So the more, the better.
The more, the better. I love it.
Yeah, so it'll be, sometimes it'll be 5, 6 times, but it's still one of those things. My kids love it. I love it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Thanks so much for doing this, Jabari. This was so much fun.
Great time. Yeah, great reconnecting, and this is
great
going to be one of our favorite episodes here.
I sure appreciate you guys.
Take care.
Jabari.
Have a good one.
All right.